Get ready for Changing Worldviews with Sharon Hughes, the 30-minute show packed with an hour's worth of information, bringing you familiar guests on important issues such as immigration, education, the Middle East, culture, religion, and the changing worldviews of Americans and the world. You've seen her on Fox News, you've read her on the World Wide Web. Now here's Sharon.
For such a time as this.
Freeing the minds of the brainwashed masses.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to this edition of Changing Worldviews. Today, the U.S. Supreme Court is hearing arguments in two pivotal cases related to religious freedom, Sibelius versus Holly Lobby Stores, and Conestoga Wood Specialties Corporation versus Sibelius. And the Supreme Court will decide if the for-profit companies owned and run by Christians will be forced to provide specific methods of birth control the companies believe are equivalent to abortion and a violation of their religious convictions. World Vision, one of the country's top Christian charities, announced that it will hire applicants in same-sex marriages. The organization's president, Richard Stearns, announced the new policy in a letter to his staff on Monday. In its 64 years, World Vision has been a kingdom view on the globe in need. But according to Tony Perkins of the Family Research Council, yesterday the organization walked away from one of the greatest legacies in Christian ministry, trading a vision to reach the world for the world's vision on marriage. The billion-dollar organization will, in its own words, quote, no longer require its 1,100 employees to restrict their sexual activity to marriage between one man and one woman. Shockingly, a court rules that teachers can have sex in schoolrooms as long as kids don't catch them. A panel of judges said on Thursday ruling that educators shouldn't be fired for having sex with one another, even in their classrooms. The Manhattan appellate judges said foreign language teachers Alino Brito, 34, and Cindy Morrow, 38, both women, were treated too harshly when they were dismissed for engaging in a sexual activity inside Brooklyn's James Madison High School. The penalty of termination is shockingly disproportionate, said the ruling, which noted that, quote, engagement in what appeared to be consensual sexual conduct with an adult colleague is not in and of itself criminal or otherwise improper, unquote. Ladies and gentlemen, what is happening to our world? Lawless. We are becoming a lawless nation and lawless world. And that's what we're going to be talking about on today's show in part 2 of my interview with Wesley Smith, author of War on Humans. Where will we draw the line between what we will and will not do? And specifically today, what we will and will not do, rule and will not rule in regards to human beings. That up right after this.
There is a full-throated campaign to destroy human beings as being on the pedestal of uniqueness. There is a full-throated, ideological, and viscerally, emotionally intense desire to turn us into just another animal in the forest. The idea behind that is if we see ourselves as just part of nature, then we will be more gentle on the land and we will treat animals more humanely and so forth. I suggest that's folly. If we see ourselves as just another animal in the forest, that's precisely how we'll act.
You're listening to Sharon Hughes, coming to you from the Wild, Wild West, and we mean wild.
Well, thanks for staying with me, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, now part 2 of my interview with Wesley Smith, author of the book and film, War on Humans. If you missed part 1, go to changingworldviews.com, click on the archives link, and you'll be able to hear part 1, which was Monday's show. Here's part 2. Most of our listeners, of course, are well aware of the euthanasia movement, abortion, of course, and so forth. But I want to bring a couple of quotes here from some, shall I say, of those that have great influence in this whole anti-human arena. Just for the record, a Dr. Philip Nitschke, he said, quote, "This would mean that the so-called peaceful pill should be available in the supermarket so that those old enough to understand death could obtain death peacefully at the time of their choosing." Now I'm building something here. Then we go on to Dr. Peter Singer. You know, everybody knows about Jack Kevorkian and think he's a crazy guy. Well, Peter Singer, even though he's hailed as one of the big guys in bioethics, he's just as crazy in my book in terms of his ideas. Dr. Peter Singer said that when the death of a disabled infant will lead to the birth of another infant with better prospects of a happy life, the total amount of happiness will be greater if the disabled infant is killed. The loss of happy life for the first infant is outweighed by the death of the other. And he went on to say, the fact that a being is a human being is not relevant to the wrongness of killing it. It is rather characteristics like rationality, autonomy, and self-consciousness that make a difference. Infants lack these characteristics, therefore killing them is okay.
This is all connected, and as you know, I started my work fighting euthanasia. And it's hard to believe, but it was 21 years ago. And as I got into that struggle, I began to see some overarching themes. And the fight against euthanasia got me into the struggle over bioethics. You just got into what Peter Singer says. He is the most influential, famous bioethicist, academic philosopher in the world. He holds the most prestigious academic chair in bioethics at Princeton University, not in spite of these views, Sharon, but because of them. Because of them. The Center for Human Values is being funded by left-wing foundations who actually are pushing this agenda very strong, and Peter Singer is not an anomaly in bioethics. You take a look at what's going on. I wrote about this, as you know, in my book, Culture of Death, The Assault on Medical Ethics in America. In bioethics, being human is irrelevant to moral worth. What matters is being a, quote, person. And Peter Singer, in that quote, talks about some of the attributes of personhood. So in this view, there's such a thing as a non-human person, whether it's an embryo or fetus, or whether it's a newborn infant, or whether it's Terri Schiavo. I was once, during the Terri Schiavo dehydration, on a debate on Court TV with a bioethicist named Bill Allen, and I said to him, we'd gone over the facts of that case so often, everybody knew them. I said, let's get to the bottom line. Is Terri Schiavo a person? And he said, no, she's not. And I said, does that mean we can take her organs? He said, yes, it does. So you're even talking now, they're not doing it, but you're talking about taking people with serious cognitive incapacities and killing them for their organs. That is under very serious discussion. It is not being done. In Belgium, where euthanasia has been legalized, they are now coupling specifically and proudly euthanasia of disabled people and mentally ill people with organ harvesting. Yeah. With consent. You have had mentally ill people asked to be killed, accepted, and then their organs harvested. This all arises when you give up on human exceptionalism. Animal rights says that human is not only irrelevant, that humans and animals are equal, because what gives moral worth is the ability to feel pain. And so in the animal rights movement, and this is my book, A Rat is a Pig, as a Dog is a Boy, then that an animal has equal worth to a human, because an animal can feel pain and a human can feel pain. Therefore, cattle ranching is akin to slavery. And listen to this. This is from PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. They ran for several years the Holocaust on Your Plate campaign, promoting veganism, in which they made the specific and explicit and conscious claim that eating meat is like the concentration camps. And here's a quote from them. The leather sofa and handbag are the modern equivalent of the lampshades made from the skins of the people killed in the death camps.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take another quick break here. When we come back, we want to bottom line this, want Wesley to bottom line this for us. So stay with me.
Exposing the worldviews behind the political, cultural, and ideological wars being waged in our nation and world, Sharon packs an hour's worth of information into every half hour with news you can use.
We have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Things are being put in place that could change the American way of life forever unless we get off the wrong paths and get back on the right ones that are proven, safe, secure, and healthy for our generation and future ones. We're going to be in trouble.
A new world order.
Never waste a good crisis.
A world order that I think all of us would like to see. The United States does not accept the legitimacy of continued Israeli settlements. It is time for these settlements to stop.
Hamas exists to destroy Israel. Their mission is to kill Israelis, to kill Jews.
However, just because evil men have plans to wipe our freedoms off the map, or Israel off the map, or whatever, in order to rule the world, it doesn't mean that it will happen. At least it doesn't have to happen here in America.
Won't you help reach even more listeners with a financial donation? Go to www.changingworldviews.com, donate page, and give either a one-time contribution or become a monthly partner. Or send your check to Changing World Views, P.O. Box 750-624, Petaluma, California, 94975-0624.
Thanks, everyone, for staying with us. My guest today, Wesley J. Smith. We're talking about his book and film on the book, War on Humans.
You know, Sharon, I've been to Auschwitz. I've been to Birkenau. I've stood in a gas chamber. I've walked that awful rail terminus. In fact, I have a picture of it here on my wall that I took. That where Jews were divided between slave labor and immediate extinction, and any movement that can't distinguish between animal husbandry and true evil has no business preaching morality to anyone. But this is the consequence, and you see it across the breadth and scope of the issues in which I deal, which is why I now discuss human exceptionalism. It's in bioethics, it's in animal rights, it's in environmentalism, it's in Darwinism. It is across a breadth and scope of very important issues that are moving us away from a Judeo-Christian view of the intrinsic dignity of human life and into one in which our United States government could say that the animals in a remote peninsula are more important than allowing a group of Aleuts to build a tiny road so they can evacuate their sick to hospital.
Yes. Now, in this, if we were to take all of these movements, as you said, where human dignity is not being valued, there's so much conflict. There's so much contradiction is the better word, because you've got the population control folks and the euthanasia guys like Peter Singer saying that what determines the value of life is personhood, and yet they're saying animals are more value than people. Animals don't have personhood as the personhood people describe you need to have. So there's so much contradiction as well.
Well, actually, there are some in the end, not Peter Singer. Well, actually, Peter Singer believes that there are some animals who could be called persons. And Peter Singer, as well as other bioethicists, say that if an animal has higher mental capacities than a human, then that animal has greater moral value. So let's say that my dog might have greater cognitive capacities than a late-stage Alzheimer's patient. What does that mean? In this view, it means my dog has higher value. And in the conflict between the late-stage Alzheimer's patient and the dog would win. It's called a quality of life ethic. This stuff, and I will say that I think I'm one of the only people who is trying to connect dots, because we all get involved, okay, this issue, and then we take a different issue, that's a different issue. There are a group of issues here that are all, they seem to be different. You know, do we have health care rationing? Do we prevent the eating of meat? Do we give rights to nature? That those would seem to be completely different issues. And to some degree there are differences, but there's also an overarching theme, and that is the denial of the unique intrinsic importance of human life.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take another quick break here. When we come back, I want Wesley to bottom line this for us, as he has so well pointed out what the consequences are, what the worldviews are, what the agendas and, the so-called solutions are. Even though it may be the devaluing of human life, what is really behind it all? What's the agenda and that worldview behind it? Because as you all know, ladies and gentlemen, here on Changing Worldviews, we talk about the worldviews behind the issues because, as Wesley said, they don't live in a vacuum. Each issue is not separate, really. There's a connection. And when we get back from this break, we're going to delve right into that. So stay with me. We'll be back in less than 2 minutes.
Changing Worldviews with Sharon Hughes, the late afternoon commute show that knows the importance of bringing concise commentary on the day's news.
Bibles that were later burned by the U.S. government. These holy books were confiscated about a year ago at Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan. An independent film aired by the Al Jazeera network had shown evangelical soldiers worshiping at Bagram and talking about ways to share their faith.
One of my proudest moments was when we were able to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It was not an easy process. There were some who doubted whether we'd ever get it done. This is done.
No sitting president has ever done what Barack Obama did yesterday.
And it's not just a matter of head, it's a matter of heart. It's who I am. It's what I care about.
It's time to wake up, America. Radical agendas that are finding ways to mainstream themselves into public policy, including here in the United States. It's time to pay attention and read between the words of the speeches of our leaders, from our president all the way down, and take off the rose-colored glasses and look at things as they really are.
If you'd like to change the world, won't you partner with us? For a donation of $15 a month, you'll receive our monthly Best of the Best program on CD and Sharon's monthly Saying It Like It Is letter. Just go to changingworldviews.com/donation page and sign up online. Or send your first $15 donation to Changing Worldviews, P.O. Box 750624, Petaluma, California 94975-0624.
Thanks, everyone, for staying with us. My guest today, Wesley J. Smith. We're talking about his book and film on the book, War on Humans. Wesley, this has been a great discussion, and in just a minute, I want you to tell our listeners the best way to get their hands on those resources. We've talked about a lot in a very short period of time, and I so appreciate that. I want to encourage you, ladies and gentlemen, to get a hold of the ebook, get a hold of the film. You want to visit his website, blog, all of that, because Wesley, I consider you one of the heroes of our generation, and I mean that with all sincerity. I know the cost that it must be for you to be in this battle, not only in the effort to write and the film and so forth and so on, but all that you're doing. And I just want to thank you personally, because without your voice and voices that are also joined with you, the American people would not know what's going on. And as was in that ad, it's so important to remember history and learn history. So can you connect dots for us from history as it relates to this huge topic that you're always wanting to bring and trying to bring and working to bring before the American people? What do we need to know from a historical standpoint? And also, what can you tell us, moving forward, can we expect to see if things don't change or stop?
You got another 45 minutes? Well, I think anytime you give up on human exceptionalism, you're asking for terrible trouble, and the weak and vulnerable among us suffer. And one that just comes quickly to mind is eugenics. Eugenics started in the late 19th century, put forward by a fellow named Francis Galton, Charles Darwin's cousin, and he was a statistician, and he decided that if human beings can be considered just an animal, then why don't we try to improve the human herd, if you will? And he came up with the idea of eugenics, which means good in birth. And then he came up with ideas for what would be good eugenics. That is, of course, people like him. It tended to be a very racist movement for blue-eyed, blonde-haired, white-type people. And his idea was called positive eugenics. That is, you kind of give inducements to the eugenically correct, if I can use that term, to procreate bountifully. It was a very crude approach. Then one of the great villains of American history, named Charles Davenport, became aware of eugenics. He was a biologist, and he went to visit Galton, and then came back here, and he convinced the Carnegie Institute and the Rockefellers and others to fund Cold Spring Harbor, which became a eugenics laboratory. And we in America, I mean, we've got practicality, right? He came up with, and the American eugenicists, negative eugenics. That is, you're never going to have enough of eugenically correct people procreating to make a difference. So we're going to stop those we consider the unfit from procreating at all. And we ended up with mandatory involuntary sterilization in eugenics of the unfit. This was approved by the United States Supreme Court in 1927, a case that goes down with the Dred Scott decision in infamy called Buck v. Bell. Carrie Buck was a woman who'd been born of a prostitute. She'd been in a foster home. She had been apparently raped by a foster relative, impregnated, and was now pregnant without being married. She was put in a mental hospital because of that. And the eugenicists at this mental hospital in Virginia said, well, this just proves it. You've got a morally unfit person giving birth to another one who just gave birth. So we are going to involuntarily sterilize Carrie Buck, who realized had not committed any crime, right? And 8-1, the United States Supreme Court said yes, involuntarily sterilize Carrie Buck, with Oliver Wendell Holmes writing, 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. And wow. She was her ability to procreate was removed under color of law. 60 to 70,000 involuntary sterilizations between 1907 and the early 60s in America. And it was from the California eugenics law that Germany wrote their Nuremberg laws for their own involuntary sterilizations, which led to 350,000 sterilizations. They got that from the California eugenics law. Once you say that human beings are not exceptional, once you say that human beings do not have equal moral value, you end up with a pernicious oppression, and often worse. So when you have in bioethics, when you have in animal rights, when you have in environmentalism, very mainstream causes, ruling class causes, if you will, a statement that our fundamental premise is that human beings are not exceptional, that they do not have unique value, that they are merely another animal in the forest, or that they are the enemy of the planet, you are looking for terrible, terrible trouble. And it is not something, and this is what drives me crazy, Sharon, because, you know, I steep myself in this, and be thankful you're not my wife. But I'll tell this to audiences, even very dedicated pro-life audiences, and they'll look at me, and I'll see them rolling their eyes thinking, oh, come on, these are just the crazy people. You know, 30 years ago, you would have been right. They're just the crazy people. Today, they're not. You're not right. Sir David Attenborough is not just the crazy people. David Suzuki, who is a rock star in environmentalism, has called human beings maggots on the planet who go around defecating all over the environment. He said that a long time ago. He was offered a chance on a recent interview to take it back, and he refused. And he said, I just wish humans weren't so humans. You have people in the United Nations pushing this and so forth. So anyone who says it can't happen here has been asleep for the last 50 years. It is happening now.
Learning from history.
There is a full-throated campaign to destroy human beings as being on the pedestal of uniqueness. There is a full-throated, ideological, and viscerally, emotionally intense desire to turn us into just another animal in the forest. The idea behind that is if we see ourselves as just part of nature, then we will be more gentle on the land and we will treat animals more humanely and so forth. I suggest that's folly. If we see ourselves as just another animal in the forest, that's precisely how we'll act.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We continued the discussion with Wesley Smith more on the subject of the war on humans. And now, this month at Changing Worldviews is Remember History Month. Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. While there are various versions of that quote, nonetheless, its sentiment rings true to all lovers of truth. Remembering history, in other words, learning from it, is a key to not repeating it. And all month long, we are going to be pointing to and pointing out history, real history, not the rewritten versions. And to go along with that, our special offer this month, yours for a donation of $25 or more, is a 4-part CD series with 10-time Pulitzer Prize nominee Edwin Black on the War on the Weak and IBM and the Holocaust. It's all about Hitler, Israel, and the United States, a very important part of history that we may think we know, but have we learned everything from that part of history we need to? And are we passing on real history to our kids and our grandkids?
Well, in fact, Hitler wrote fan mail to the associates of Margaret Sanger of Planned Parenthood, who also was a eugenicist and who wished to eliminate the existence of 2/3 of humanity through her methods. I can tell you that Mia Jamad is attempting to do in 12 minutes what Hitler could not do in 12 years. Virtually all forms of genocide in the last 200 years that I have studied have emanated and been cultivated at the university level.
I'd love to send you this 4-part CD series, War on the Weak and IBM and the Holocaust with Edwin Black, for a donation of $25 or more. Send your check to Changing Worldviews, P.O. Box 750-624, Petaluma, California 94975-0624. Or you can go to changingworldviews.com, click on the donate button, and the one-time donation for monthly special, changingworldviews.com. Dwayne will give the address again. So don't miss Friday, my interview with Ray Comfort, author of the other Noah movie that releases the same day as the Hollywood version of Noah. Much controversy around it. What is Hollywood not telling you in their version of Noah? That'll be on Friday's show. And so until I see you next time, this is Sharon Hughes saying it like it is.
Thanks for listening to Changing Worldviews with Sharon Hughes. You can get more information on today's topic or order a CD of today's show by visiting changingworldviews.com. or writing us at Changing Worldviews, P.O. Box 750-624, Petaluma, California, 94975-0624. You can also contact us at talk@changingworldviews.com. That's talk@changingworldviews.com. Our program is listener-supported, and we appreciate your tax-deductible donations to help us get the truth out on the important issues Sharon addresses on the show. So until next time, remember, stay alert, stay informed. We live in a changing world.